I made the claim that Super Bowl 58 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs was going to be an all-time classic game. And boy, oh boy, did the Super Bowl live up to the hype. I mean, this game had everything you could have asked for as a football fan. It was one of the best football games I've ever watched from an entertainment standpoint from start to finish. But what's the biggest takeaway from the Chiefs knocking off the 49ers 25-22 in overtime in Super Bowl 58? The reality of the Kansas City Chiefs winning their third Super Bowl in a 4-year stretch and beating the 49ers in Super Bowl 58 is the Kansas City Chiefs have completely one-upped the San Francisco 49ers on their way to being a dynasty. If a couple of things would have bounced San Francisco's way in this particular Super Bowl and in the Super Bowl in which they faced Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs a couple of years ago, we'd be talking about the 49ers as a dynasty, to be quite honest with you. But here's the thing. The harsh reality and the sad truth about the San Francisco 49ers franchise right here, right now, fresh after losing to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, once again in a Super Bowl, is the 49ers, they've done almost everything right. They've drafted well. They've got a great scouting department. The coaching staff is unbelievable. You know, they have an elite running back in Christian McCaffrey. Everyone says, oh, you can't go out and get an elite running back. You know, it's not worth it. The 49ers proved that wrong to me. You know, you have an elite running back. You have an elite left tackle in Trent Williams. You've got receivers. You know, Deebo Samuel, you know, is great. Brandon Ayuk is great. George Kittle's amazing. You've got an all-star level roster. Even the Chase Young trade seemed to pay off in that Super Bowl. You know, you got pass rushers. You got pretty much everything. It seems like the San Francisco 49ers have done almost everything right in terms of building their team from the ground up, drafting well, and trying to create a Super Bowl caliber team. However, someone on the block has one up to them. Someone on the block just flatly does it a little bit better than the San Francisco 49ers, and that is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Sometimes in life, even if you work hard and put your best foot forward, the sad reality of life is that sometimes there's someone out there just a little bit better than you. And it's sad. It's a life lesson you have to learn. You have to get over at some point, but it's the truth. Because here's the thing, people. There are tons of Olympic gold medalists out there, or at least I should say, there are tons of Olympic gold medalist caliber athletes in our world right now. Some have worked their entire lives to win a gold medal at the Olympics. But unfortunately, sometimes there's just some athletes and some people out there that are just a little bit more physically gifted than you. And no matter how much work you put in, they're probably always going to be a little bit better than you on their best day. See, the San Francisco 49ers have put together a great burger restaurant in food terms. But unfortunately, the Kansas City Chiefs, their special sauce and the way they make burgers is just a little bit better. And even if people have to drive 20 miles up the block to get the special that is the Kansas City Chiefs, they're probably going to do so over what the 49ers have to offer. That's where we're at regarding the 49ers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are an all-time great dynasty. And the 49ers, in relatively any other era, potentially, I say potentially because there's been other dynasties in the past, whether it be the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, you get the point. But in some other years, more than likely, the 49ers are challenging to become a dynasty because they draft well. They have the great coaching staff. They have found a very good quarterback in Brock Purdy. Everyone talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, how, Garoppolo is just an average guy. The 49ers need a great quarterback potentially. Brock Purdy was in the MVP conversation this season. Now, I'm not sitting up here saying Brock Purdy is a game-changing elite quarterback, but he's pretty darn good. It is hard to find a good franchise starting quarterback in the NFL, and it seems like the 49ers have found that in Brock Purdy. But unfortunately, he's not Patrick Mahomes. As good as Kyle Shanahan is, he's not Andy Reid. As good as George Kittle is, he's not Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's the greatest tight end of all time. George Kittle, he'd be lucky to make the Hall of Fame one day, and maybe he's going to do that one day, but you get the point. This is a very good show on turf being compared to one of the greatest shows on turf we've ever seen, and that's the sad reality about the 49ers, because if you're the San Francisco 49ers and you go back to the drawing board this morning after losing in the Super Bowl, you ask yourself, what more can we do? We've made the trades. We've signed the free agents. We've got a good mix of young players and veterans on our roster. We found a quarterback in Brock Purdy that's capable. What more else do we need to do? And unfortunately for the 49ers, the reality may be at some point in the future, your best bet is to just avoid the Kansas City Chiefs altogether in the Super Bowl, because that may be the only way they actually win a Super Bowl. And this is all-time great stuff we're talking about regarding Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes, you can make the argument he's well on his way to becoming the greatest quarterback of all time. The guy's got 3 Super Bowl trophies to his name, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. This was arguably Patrick Mahomes' worst statistical season in the regular season, and he still throws for over 4,000 yards, still finds a way to win 10 games, and boom, what do you know? He comes up clutch in the fourth quarter, finds a way to win, and what do you know? The Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl, and they've won another Super Bowl. You have to just give credit to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, where the 49ers potentially messed up is they recognized that they were in a position where they were good enough, but maybe not quite good enough to win a Super Bowl. They were good enough to consistently be a playoff team, consistently win their division, even against the likes of Sean McVay and the Rams, which is impressive, but will they ever reach Super Bowl status? Because the Kansas City Chiefs were in a very similar situation the 49ers were in several years ago, where you had Alex Smith as your quarterback, and he was good, he could win games, but Alex Smith was never going to win you a Super Bowl unless everything broke his way. And in the NFL, that's probably unlikely. So the Chiefs, they decided to wreck the entire NFL, identify an all-time talented quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, traded up for the guy, and boom, they become a dynasty instantly when Mahomes starts playing. The 49ers tried that with Trey Lance. They said Trey Lance is a big, strong, tall, athletic quarterback, that looks the part. He could potentially be our version of Patrick Mahomes. But unfortunately, the 49ers swung and missed on Trey Lance. And I'm not here to diss Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is more than capable, and Brock Purdy's story is not fully done. But the reality is, Brock Purdy is a guy that can operate at a high level within a system. He's not a generational talent. He's not a game-changing quarterback, and that's fine. That's not me hating on Brock Purdy. In terms of a Patrick Mahomes, those guys come around once, maybe every 30 years. I mean, we're talking about who's a more talented quarterback compared to Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Dan Marino. I understand Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time because of his resume, but in terms of God-given ability, Tom Brady cannot touch Patrick Mahomes. That's just the honest truth. And I even think Tom Brady himself would tell you that. That doesn't take away from what Brady's done, but I'm just talking about God-given physical ability. Patrick Mahomes has everyone trumped, maybe outside of Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is the only quarterback that can rival Patrick Mahomes in terms of just pure ability to throw the football and God-given ability in terms of just flinging that rock around that field, because it is all-time special stuff when you watch the guy play. And the reality is, Michael Jordan denied a lot of guys of championship rings. Charles Barkley is one of the all-time great players in NBA history. His story would be a little bit different if he would have beaten Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals. Same thing with Karl Malone. Do you realize that Karl Malone is the 3rd all-time leading scorer in NBA history as we speak today? If Karl Malone finds a way to beat Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals, we're having a lot more different conversations about Karl Malone, but unfortunately, he didn't get it done. Charles Barkley didn't quite get it done. Clyde Drexler didn't quite get it done. Just like with Tom Brady, look at a guy like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is statistically, just looking at the numbers, maybe one of the 10 best quarterbacks ever. Now, he's not in my top 10 all time. I'm just talking about Phillip Rivers' numbers and overall body of work. He obviously didn't win a lot, and statistics aren't everything. But if you look at Phillip Rivers' statistics, he's top 10 all time in touchdown passes and passing yards. But you wonder, why did Phillip Rivers never quite get it done? Mainly because of his own shortcomings, and he wasn't the greatest quarterback in the clutch, but also, for the most part, he had to go through Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots. And unfortunately, Phillip Rivers got lost in history, never once beat Tom Brady and a healthy Patriots team. And right now, today, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they are the standard. They're the new Brady and Belichick. Until someone knocks them off, it's going to be their NFL league to run. That's the reality. And I don't think anyone should be denying it. And when it comes to the 49ers, I think the 49ers recognize this, and they said, as good as Jimmy Garoppolo can be, even though Brock Purdy is talented, we need a gunslinger that can potentially be our version of Patrick Mahomes in Trey Lance, and the Trey Lance experiment failed for the 49ers. It's unfortunate. Trey Lance got hurt, never quite was ready to be an NFL starting quarterback when his name was called upon. And the 49ers, they're in an urgent state because they have a roster that's ready to win right now. So they roll with Brock Purdy. And I'm not necessarily blaming them for rolling with Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy put up a great, valiant effort. And I think the future is bright for Brock Purdy. But all I'm saying is, when it comes to Mahomes and the Chiefs, they completely won up the 49ers. They beat the 49ers at their own game. The 49ers had the exact same vision the Kansas City Chiefs had, with their own variant of their secret sauce, meaning they kind of more so invested in defense early on in their stages of building their team. Meanwhile, the Chiefs more so invested in offense in terms of building their team, and now it's kind of reversed. The Chiefs are more so relying on defense. The 49ers are more so relying on offense. There's little wrinkles here and there that are different in terms of the Chiefs and the 49ers philosophy, but for the most part, they're in the same ballpark in terms of what they envisioned for a Super Bowl caliber winning team. But unfortunately, the Chiefs are just flatly better than the 49ers. They took the same blueprint and they made it their own. They ran the blueprint and executed the plan better than the 49ers just because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, 9 times out of 10, maybe even sometimes 10 times out of 10, they're better than your head coach and your starting quarterback. And by the way, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. I doubted them for a little bit, during these playoffs. I didn't think that they were going to lose to Buffalo, but I felt Baltimore had a chance to beat them. I felt the 49ers were the better team, and maybe right now they are just a little bit more well-rounded, but it doesn't matter. When you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, all realistic expectations go out the window because you're dealing with one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. You have a guy like Chris Jones, who's part of the band, that no one seems to really talk about. Could be a Hall of Famer one day. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's my full breakdown of the Super Bowl. I thought the Super Bowl was a great matchup overall. I felt San Francisco came out really hot. They came out with a lot of energy. You had Chase Young getting a sack early on. Nick Bosa seemed juiced up, but unfortunately the 49ers, they just made a couple too many mistakes. Christian McCaffrey had that fumble, early in the game that took potential points off the board for the 49ers. Obviously, you had the 49ers kicker, I believe Jake Moody, missing an extra point that really, really had an effect on how the game was called down the stretch, because if the Chiefs are down 4 points late in the game, they're forced to score a touchdown to potentially stay in the game, whereas they just at that point needed a field goal to stay in the game, and the game went to overtime, and the Kansas City Chiefs just found a way to win. It seems like even when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, it's not always pretty. It's not as pretty as Aaron Rodgers, and that's another thing. I think that people looked at Patrick Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech and they said, it's not always pretty with Mahomes. So, I'm a little bit turned off, but it doesn't always have to be pretty. As long as you have the intangibles and you can get the job done and be that stone cold killer in the fourth quarter, I really don't care how pretty it looks. Mahomes finds a way to get it done when the chips are on the line. He is one of the clutchest athletes that I've ever watched in my history of watching sports, just flat out. He's one of the clutchest football players in NFL history. He's right up there with Tom Brady. He is in that same tier. Peyton Manning was pretty clutch. Joe Montana was one of the more clutcher quarterbacks for sure. Obviously, you have to give a lot of respect to him for winning 4 Super Bowls, and being 4-0 in the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes, he's building his own legacy. And I think that Patrick Mahomes has a chance to go down as a quarterback with maybe the greatest resume of all time, while also being the most skilled quarterback of all time. When it's all said and done, we can look back on Patrick Mahomes and say, yeah, from a talent perspective, that's a bad brother. Can't nobody touch him, potentially. But also, he's got the resume too. He's got the numbers. He's winning Super Bowls. Like, Mahomes is changing the way we are going to discuss the quarterback position 25 years, 35 years from now. We're going to be changing how we look at quarterbacks because of Patrick Mahomes. He is truly amazing. He's one of a kind, one of my favorite athletes to watch. And if you want to call Patrick Mahomes the greatest quarterback of all time, I'm not quite there yet. I do think that I need to see a couple more Super Bowl trophies and a couple more great postseason runs. And let's be real, Tom Brady did knock off Patrick Mahomes twice in a Super Bowl. Well, not in the Super Bowl, twice in the playoffs, once in the Super Bowl in blowout fashion, and also in Patrick Mahomes' house in the AFC Championship game. But at that point, Patrick Mahomes was kind of a young gun, He wasn't quite in the prime of his career. Meanwhile, Brady wasn't necessarily in the prime of his career, but he was still a seasoned veteran that just knew how to win. Mahomes hadn't quite figured out how to win just yet when he met Tom Brady in the playoffs. And same thing with the Chiefs. They had to fix their defense a little bit, kind of change their philosophy. And they had to go through the trials and tribulation of falling to a Tom Brady to get to this point where they're beating Kyle Shanahan's of the world. So that's my overall analysis, And by the way, Buffalo Bills fans, I have a question for you. Are you still content with the Buffalo Bills deciding that Josh Allen is a guy that you'll take over Patrick Mahomes? Because you had a chance to draft Patrick Mahomes back in 2017, but you traded away the pick, and the very next year, you had to settle for Josh Allen. And I'm not taking anything away from Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is a very talented quarterback in his own right. But Patrick Mahomes is a once-in-a-lifetime type of quarterback, and you passed on him. And it's so crazy to me that Mitchell Trubisky was taking over Patrick Mahomes in the 2017 NFL draft. I mean, it's crazy. I'll kind of get to more of that analysis here in a little bit, but congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning Super Bowl 58. I think the halftime show was also amazing. It was great. I will dive into that a little bit more later on as the show progresses, because it seems like people, for some reason, did not enjoy Usher's halftime show. At least some people that I saw talking about it on Twitter. I had a friend hit me up via text saying, man, did you see that Usher halftime show? It wasn't very good. And I looked at him and that text message and I said, are you delusional? Like, was I watching the same halftime show as you? So we'll get into that and the gist of things. But Mahomes, Andy Reid, and by the way, shout out to Travis Kelce. You performed great in front of your boo, Taylor Swift. And last but not least, don't ever compare George Kittle to Travis Kelce ever again, because the so-called big bad wolf, George Kittle, more talented than Travis Kelce. He had a whopping 2 catches for 4 yards in Super Bowl 58 compared to Travis Kelce, who had 9 catches for 92 yards and was sensational once again. Travis Kelce is no doubt about it, the greatest tight end of all time. I understand that Rob Gronkowski has a right to put himself in that conversation. If you want to say it's Rob Gronkowski, that's fine, but I'm going to disagree. I think Travis Kelce, for my money, is the greatest tight end of all time. I think that his body of work displays it and shows for it, and I think Kelce is wildly, wildly talented. Congratulations, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, it's a heartbreaking loss, no doubt about it, but, I mean, at some point, someone's got to lose, and unfortunately, it's Shanahan and the 49ers. And congratulations to the Chiefs. The dynasty continues to roll on. And it'll be interesting to see how much longer this dynasty continues, because Patrick Mahomes, he's not even 30 years old yet. And he's still got a lot of room to grow and play quarterback in the National Football League. And it's going to be a treat to see how it pans out over time.